We're talking about all of the cabinet picks. Will, one that we discussed as we were heading into the break was Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, which probably our audience mainly knows of as a broadcaster, but is someone who has a deep history. And President Trump's statement said, "I'm honored to announce I've nominated Pete Hegseth to serve in my cabinet as Secretary of Defense. He spent his entire life as a warrior for the troops and for the country. Pete is tough, smart, and a true believer in America first. And with Pete at the helm, America's enemies are on notice. Our military will be great again, and America will never back down." So again, another familiar face.
Right.
What I like about this is that it's the same with Mike Huckabee. I believe probably the mass majority of people cannot name the cabinet currently in the Biden administration.
Mm-hmm.
Not for lack of experience, not for lack of being people who are of character. I don't know them personally, but they're not names that you could just rattle off. What I like about this is if you're in this world, you know now Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel. You know he's the one we need to turn to. And now you have Pete Hegseth, similarly, a person who's very familiar. People know the name. You could add Elise to that. You could add Kristi Noem to that as kind of known quantities in this. I mean, Elon, obviously, and Vivek. It's a lot of heavy hitters.
It was fun to be on Twitter last night to see the left melting down.
Ex-formerly Twitter.
Sorry, I'm old habits. But seeing the left melt down over this announcement that Pete Hegseth would be nominated to be the Secretary of Defense. He needs to get confirmed by the Senate. Yeah. I think of all the picks, this is probably the harder order for the Trump administration because of what people see and what the left is saying on Twitter is that, you know, he picked an outsider.
Yeah. I mean, look, of all the rumblings, I never heard Pete Hegseth thrown out there.
Right.
And we've heard a lot of these names thrown out there, at least in some positions. This was not one that I had even heard a rumbling about.
Right. And now he is a decorated veteran. As you mentioned, he served a tour in Afghanistan and Iraq and also served at Guantanamo Bay. He has 2 Bronze Stars for valor in battle. He's over 20-year veteran and also, I believe, is still in the Minnesota National Guard. Now, when you look at this, and to me, this is why I love this pick. The people who are melting down are the people who have defense contracts, who are very hawkish and want someone who is going to be more like the generals that we've seen. I've even seen people pointing to, like, General, the Secretary Lloyd Austin, who is the current Secretary of Defense. He was a general. He knew the inner workings of the military. And people are saying, yeah, right. This is the guy who disappeared from the job and didn't tell anyone and had a serious medical condition and tried to pretend that he was still there.
That's right.
He oversaw the disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan. Maybe just because you spent your entire career inside the military machine doesn't make you the best manager for that job. And I can understand some people saying, there's 2 million employees in the Department of Defense. It's a large operation. If you don't have that kind of managerial experience, maybe that could be a detriment to you.
They
but
build teams around them,
that's the other thing. It's not like he's the only person. He will be appointing deputies, probably many deputies that have been in those kind of roles, so that it's not a steep learning curve of managing the department. But I like the pick. I like that the people that are freaking out about it are the people that have a lot of skin in the game as far as contracts. And then you also look at, this is someone who makes millions of dollars a year with his contract at Fox.
Yeah, this is a lot. These are big people who are taking significant cuts.
You make about $250,000 a year to be the the Secretary of Defense.
Obviously, it could really build your career beyond this.
Sure.
It could be a big moment for Pete, and it is. I mean, obviously, if they're taking these positions, look, I feel the same way about Governor Huckabee. I mean, he's got a deal. He's got a TV show. He's a contributor to Fox. He's on a lot of these broadcasts. What I like about it, and I believe what I've heard in the picking of the cabinet right now, is there have been these moments where they're not only going through all of their records and making sure that they match up with where President Trump wants them to be, but he also is taking a look at how they all are on camera.
Mm-hmm.
And they all are when they can speak to the American people. So now you'll have a Secretary of Defense who is very comfortable speaking to the American people, knows how to speak in an English that is understandable, and has some built-in trust, at least with your own community. I think that's good. Same when you deal with such a sensitive situation in Israel, and you have at least Mike Huckabee, who again was a pastor, was a broadcaster for the last 20 years or so, can speak to the American people in a way that's understandable and is relatable. I think that it goes, and Christine Ohm even, that goes beyond just normal politics as usual, where you put in somebody who, may ruffle feathers and can't speak to the American people and end up causing more chaos for you and unrest for the people.
Well, and here's a statement from John Thune, who was just elected by the Senate, by his colleagues.
This is just coming out right now.
He said, "I'm extremely honored to have earned the support of my colleagues to lead the Senate in the 119th Congress, and I'm beyond proud of the work I have done to secure our majority in the White House. This Republican team is united behind President Trump's agenda, and our work starts today." So this is where you're going to start seeing what happens with John Thune in leadership as the majority leader, because picks like Pete Hegseth, that one I do believe is going to require the most heavy lifting because it's the most outside of the norm. It's the most left field pick on paper. So they're going to have to really prep him for these confirmation hearings. And people like Senator Thune, now Leader Thune, are going to have to ensure that if they are really behind President Trump's agenda, that they can get these type nominees over the finish line. Because you can't just put people in the cabinet. They are there with the advice and consent of the United States Senate. So if he is united behind President Trump's agenda, these are the times that you're going to start seeing that is how these picks for cabinet start getting their hearings, how they're voted on, and where we go from here.